It's time to look at the month of October forecast for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and the United States going into October, and also looking at Election Day, and can we see through astrology a glimpse into possibly who could be the victor. So welcome, my name is Lydia. This is the Feng Shui and Bazi Chinese Astrology channel. On this channel, I often like to read the charts of famous people, sometimes even countries, so that we can better understand our own astrology and our own charts. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If this sparks curiosity or interest for you, please subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. I have covered a whole lot of this election and all of its twists and turns. There has been an intuitive part of me that feels a measure of anxiety going into this month of October. And in my astrology forecast for October, just the general forecast, I will put a link to that video so that you can get a glimpse into that a little bit more deeply in how it might relate to you. But when we're looking at these candidates, not so much with Kamala Harris, but certainly with Donald Trump, there's been so many moving parts, from lawsuits and legal battles to being, to assassination attempts. And he is going through such a pivotal change in his life through his astrology. And that's one of the things that astrology does for us. We can work with it, or we can be a victim to it, right? Which is the beauty of knowing what your forecast and what your future looks like. It also helps you to understand what the heck's going on right now. So if you're interested in your own Bazi Chinese astrology, I'll put links below. And currently, if you get a written chart, I will give you a complimentary 2025 New Year update with month-by-month predictions that are specific to you. It's the best time to do this, and I'm offering this in a good 2 months ahead of when I usually do. Partially because I think that this year is catapulting us into one of the most transformative times globally. So, and I will get into all of that in the coming months as well. It's so important, not to rush with that measure of anxiety into, oh my God, what's going to happen next, right? That you're able to say, I am present in this now moment, and understanding this now and maybe the immediate future serves me better. So that being said, these charts are extremely complicated. Bazi Chinese Astrology, if you're new to this, I often say Western astrology is of the sky and Eastern astrology is of the earth. And it is made up of 12 zodiac animals and the 5 elements. So Kamala Harris and Donald Trump both are dealing with an enormous amount of punishments, penalties, conflict in their own Bazi astrology. And neither one of them look like clear winners, right? Which is frustrating because, you get behind someone and you're like, you really want to know clearly that they're going to win. And I can't see that. I will also say this is the first reading of this year where I'm not including RFK Jr., Bobby Kennedy Jr. But I do not think he is out of the picture. So I am putting him on a shelf. And I'll be back with another updated video if things change, because they're going to. Now, my desk has turned into a Feng Shui disaster that I am regularly cleaning up because there are so many notes that I have about the ever-changing situation. So, and I also just looked up Inauguration Day and will give an update with that, because I think that's also going to be interesting to look at what's going on for these candidates in regard to getting to Inauguration Day. And do we even have a clear winner by then? We can hope so. So Election Day is the second to last day of the month of October, because in Chinese astrology, we work with the lunar calendar. And so this is a Yang Wood Dragon year. We know this. And it is, as we go into October 7th, is the first day of October. It is a Yang Wood Dog. The election day happens on Yin Water Rooster Day. So we can work with this by recognizing immediately that we are seeing a day that is very much about being seen, being heard, showing up and showing your colors, waving your flag, right? Or waving the banner with your candidate's name on it. It is very much a big, bold wake-up call, because that's what roosters do, right? They wake us up. So there's that. So we're going to push that aside. We're going to look at the month. The month is a Yang Wood Dog. The dog is all about justice. It's about fairness. It's about equality. It's about standing up for the underdog. It's a rally cry. And the dog is extremely protective and loyal. Can also be rather vicious in how it protects what it believes in. So we're adding that another layer. So remember that in the scope of things, your personal Bazi astrology is the most important to you. And after that is the luck cycle that we all go through every 10 years, dependent on your birth chart. That would be the next most impactful, influential layer. Then comes the year, then the month, the day, and the hour. In this scope, what we're looking at as at just a date, just looking at a date, we recognize, again, most important piece here is the year, how it then is impacting the month, and then we're looking at the day. And I think I've already said that the most critical, conflicted and critical hours of the American election day are going to be from 7 to 9 in the morning and 7 to 9 p.m. at night, because those are the hours of the dog and the dragon. They sit opposite each other. They sit in the southeast and the northwest. Southeast is the dragon of spring, and the dog is the northwest of fall. They are staunch enemies. The dragon is about innovation, dreaming big, flying high. It's about leadership and how you lead. If you have multiple dragons in your chart, you're more likely to be something like a dictator, overpowering, domineering, aggressive. But the dragon is, for me, the way I see this year, is a gateway, because the dragon is the only Chinese zodiac animal that is not of the earth. It is of the mystical, magical sky. Therefore, it gives us permission to dream the impossible dream, to take that leap into the giant void, trusting you will fly. Even when we fall and land on our faces, we get back up. We get back up and we try again and again. And one day we do fly. So, Kamala Harris. Let's see. Give you her info. So, Kamala Harris, what am I doing here? Here we go. I'm telling you, it's like so many things. Okay, so this is Kamala Harris's chart with all my notes, okay? When we look at her chart, it isn't elementally that imbalanced, meaning she has of her own element, she is a water person. That's 15%, nice and balanced, because of the 5 elements you want between 15 and 20%. What nurtures her metal is 20%. Her career, earth, interesting that government and law are part of that, or government is part of that earth element. That's strong at 31%. Fire is her weakest element at 6%. But it still benefits from her strong wood, that's law, at 30%. Remembering that the 5 elements represent so many things, including our careers. For instance, public speaking is a water element. Cooking is a fire element, or acting, okay? So earth is the element that rules government and politics, and wood is law, and she's obviously involved in both of those. But overall, I see her chart as pretty balanced. Now, her chart's a mess. But I'm going to tell you something. And I mentioned this in a video I did about, is your astrology stressing you out? Because some people get their astrology, and especially if you get a free chart and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this looks like a mess. It may not actually be as big a mess as you think. Sometimes you need someone like myself. I'm a master Bazi astrologer to analyze it, because every challenge is that opportunity. I know, it's been said. She is born in a Yang Wood Dragon year. She turned 60 this year. Her birthday is a day before mine, October 20th, 1964 at 2028. Her month is a Yang Wood dog. These are mirrors matching up, aligning with election day. But before you think that's a groovy, cool thing, pause that thought. Her day is a Yang Water Tiger, and her hour is a Yang Metal Dog. I just told you that the dog and the dragon are enemies. They sit opposite each other. Now, this is interesting for her, because what I see with her, she is too yang, she's too overpowering, she's aggressive, and very much stands in the divine masculine. Her current luck cycle is a Yang Earth Dragon, giving her 2 dragons and 2 dogs. Now, this is someone who she brings her work for justice. It's like the challenge that is built within her chart that very much speaks of all the things I just mentioned: leadership, dreaming big, being innovative, being imaginative, being a strong leader, asserting herself. And then you bring in the dog's qualities, right? Standing up for justice, being, the work that she's done as a prosecutor. You bring all of these qualities in, but they're in conflict. Her chart is a conflict. But what she was able to do with all of that was happening in her chart was she took an internal, right? That's your astrology. She took an internal struggle and battle within herself and externalized it into her warrior cry to save people, to better people's lives in all the ways that she has done that. That's a noble cause. So 2024 is lighting her whole chart up. It is like a giant it's like radiating. Everything in her chart is highlighted, emphasized, magnified. It's kind of like this energy just got blown up big, huge. It's almost dangerous to the point of being like where your power, you get out of control. Got to watch that ego. Got to watch that ego. So, what's going on for Miss Kamala Harris in the month of October? This year talks about action. It talks about a change in her job, which has already happened, right? She wasn't the main person on the ticket for the Democratic Party, and now she is. Big changes in her career. Changes, under the surface kind of changes, not obvious changes, but under the surface change, things going on behind the scenes, and a change of role. We're seeing that, all of it. Now we come into the month of the dog. And again, that Yang Wood speaks of action, actively engaging in her life. And again, we see change to her career. This change also includes people being harsh, critical, condemning, defaming. It's highlighting her career with change and with challenge. Tucked into the dog is government and politics. Success with money, health, travel. And what's going on, and I've spoken about this before, is sometimes when you have conflict, things break open or fall apart. So this is the fine line here. Do these qualities that are tucked inside, where I'm speaking of change and a change of role, does that make things fall apart for her this year? Or does it lead her into this month where this magnified conflict breaks open her role in government and politics with success? These are really bold questions to ask ourselves. Then we come to the day of the rooster. This speaks dominantly of a change of identity for her. And it speaks of government and politics. If you ask me, that's a pretty cool thing. The other thing this day of the election speaks to is the divine feminine presence. In that, we could say things look good for her. Donald Trump. His chart, I've got so many notes on this chart. When I was getting my master's, my teacher, Paul Yan, and I went over this chart because he is someone that knows legal battles so well, because it's such a huge part of his chart, that I don't think they really rattle him. It's like, yeah, here we go, another lawsuit. And somehow I always get around them. But eventually, we can go and go, skirting a lot of things, getting away with a lot of things, but one day karma catches up with us. So Donald Trump, fascinating astrology this guy's got, of a Yang fire dog for his year, a Yang wood horse for his month, a Yin earth sheep for his day, and a Yin earth snake for his hour. Two things to mention on that. One is that in 2025, Kamala Harris will have the Noble Star of Protection. That's a very positive thing. This year of the snake is going to hit up against Donald Trump's hour. And currently, his chart is on fire. He has 53% or more of his chart is his own element of earth. It is all about him, all about him. And the fire supporting him is 42%. That's a Zhao bird chart. It's too much resource. And it's harm to the relationship with the mother. And Donald Trump comes from such an interesting family background. He has hardly any metal. He has no water in his chart and a weak amount of wood at about 10%. So when we look at this year for him, first of all, we notice, like, I'm not kidding, I got a whole list of penalties and conflicts. He is being thrown everything. Everything is being thrown at him astrologically. And then we see that actualize in real life. Everything is being thrown at him. And we have to remember that Donald Trump's born in 1946. Kamala Harris is born in 1964. And that matters. Because there is so much being thrown at this man at his age, given his lifestyle, that I have said I don't even know that he is going to make it through the next 6 weeks or 5 weeks, wherever we are with, I think it's 5 weeks now. So for him, the astrology of this year speaks of managing all of his responsibilities, his work, being very dominant in his life is his work. And the dragon speaks of loss of money, change in his supporters. His supporters, like there's a shift going on with that, and a question of his identity, a question of his alliances. It's the shadow side of himself is being highlighted. Tucked into that dragon is change, like a punch to his career. And this again can be danger. It can be defamation. It can be people being extra critical of you. But this is tucked in, so it's not a big thing. But it's under there. Then we have mention of infidelity, mention of health issues, and money that's coming in from outside resources like donations. Now, again, the interesting thing with this is the year of the dragon banging up against his dog. And that banging up is breaking open those qualities that are hidden in there. This is part of why we've had not one, this is crazy, but 2 assassination attempts. The dog of October, again, we're looking at career highlighted big time. And again, this loss and shift in support. What's going on? Where am I with all of this? Tucked into the dog is this, like there's action and there's outside support. Not necessarily government, but just outside support. Then we look at the day of the election, and this speaks of outside resources coming in. It speaks of health issues being brought to the surface. And tucked into that is action, taking action. So when we look at how the zodiac animals are interacting together with his astrology, what we're finding is his hour of the snake and the day of the election creates a semi-metal trio. And the metal is definitely something that is pushing him forward. It's an action. Then we look at the dragon and the dog push earth up, but weaken water and fire, which means his support is weakened and his finances. This also might impact his marriage. And so that has been going on all year. That banging up against the dragon, up against his year. And the fact that his own earth, which is already overly inflated, this is a very unique chart, is brought back, is like, as that grows, his chart is so hot and so dry. And how he kind of seems like someone who is in this state of constant agitation, irritation, raging against the machine. And all that can be groovy and cool when you've got, you're on a path to change things and make things happen. But the thing is, you've got to always have balance in life. So you can be out there raging against the machine, having these rallies where you're really charged up and you're using all of that yang aggressive energy, very much like a bulldog. But you've got to counter that with your time off, making sure you're nourishing yourself with good food, that you're getting good rest, that you have a way to balance all that yang with a little bit of yin, right? And the thing that worries me, fears for him, is that he is pushing himself so hard at his age and with his lifestyle and his chart being so hot and dry that some event is going to happen to his health. Then you have his dog and his day of the sheep forms a penalty or punishment that speaks of stress that causes him health issues, like I just said. And then you see it there again. And this astrology for October magnifies that. It pulls to focus that this conflict and stress in his life, it's literally whittling him down energetically, and it will show up in his health. I would not be at all surprised if we see on one of the challenging days that I spoke of for October that he has some kind of health event. What else is going on for this man? He also, as of last November, moved into a new luck cycle of a tiger, right? And you remember last November, it was like a pinata of legal problems blew up for him. That's what this semi-penalty is all about. And next year, the year of the snake, is going to magnify this all on his career. It is about defamation, lawsuits, loss of power, loss of position, loss of money, loss of life. Now, this is a semi-penalty, but it still is impactful. And it harms the wood in his chart, which means it harms his career and his marriage. We also have the month he's born in of the horse, and his life pillar of the horse shows a penalty, the same that Kamala Harris has with her dragon. Where'd she go? With her dragon luck cycle and year that she's born in, plus this year 2024, 3 dragons impacting her chart. They both of these people have this penalty where you get stuck in internal conflict, kind of like you're at war with yourself inside. And that can come off as people that have a fixed mindset, get stuck in old patterns of thinking. Like you get into a lane of thinking it's this way and that's it. It's the only way is that way and that's my way. So, and you can talk to people like that. We know people like that. It's really hard to be in relationship with because you can't convince them otherwise. And there's a risk to self-sabotage yourself because you're so stuck in your head. So all this, it's kind of a bit of a mess. Now, I did not write this last piece down, but I'm going to say it. What's going on for the United States for Election Day is kind of an interesting thing because we've got, it's actually very similar to Donald Trump's because the United States and Donald Trump are both represented by Yin Earth. And this really speaks to a real focus on our duties as a nation. What is our duty? What is our job? How do we show up in family? This feels ancestral somehow. And then we look at the dragon, and the dragon is really this is a time where the United States is really finding itself. It's a re-identification of this nation, and it's time. This country needs a shake-up and a wake-up. There are a lot of systems in this country that are broken and don't work anymore. And tucked into the dragon is a measure of highlighting careers, highlighting what rules us as a country, highlighting how we face conflict and opposition. It speaks of outside resources and the patriarchy. So you've got that for the dragon. The dog, again, is about re-identifying. And because there's conflict, it's re-identifying ourselves through conflict. We're going to have to battle this out in order to come out recognizing this is who we are. And the dog says, take action. Tucked into that dog is the action, and also, I would say, something going on with government and banking. All right, so the day of the rooster is interesting because it mirrors the hour of the United States, and it's very much about the patriarchy. It's about taking action, and it's yeah, and because of that, I think there's something very interesting about the idea of Kamala Harris being from her astrology, that it's the day speaks of the divine feminine in her chart. And yet, as a country, when we look at the country's astrology, it's still speaking of a patriarchy. But again, there is conflict leading us to re-identifying ourselves as a country. And then to ask ourselves, what will happen when we enter into the year of the snake? Recognizing that in 2027, the United States is going to go through a luck cycle change. And if you ask me, it is going to lead us into one of the most transformative, revolutionary, changeable, innovative, creative times in this country's existence. It'll be very much like a revolution. I don't know that that means a war, but it definitely means massive change. And the current luck cycle we're in speaks of who are we? And seeing ourselves as who we are, but because we're born, the United States is born on the day of an ox, and our current luck cycle since 2017 has been a sheep. The sheep has been banging up against our day. This has been a real situation of recognizing our identity. In some ways, some might say it's, and when you look even at the polarity of this election, it is completely makes sense. I mean, I'm literally thinking this in this moment, that this is a war, this election, between the rise of the divine feminine, which is the age of Aquarius, and what we are leaving behind, which is the patriarchy. One of the things I said about Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s chart, he's the only one that has a chart that isn't full of conflict and penalties, and he's the only one who has a chart that sits in the divine feminine. He also is one of the only candidates that we had that was talking about innovative change, specific to the horrific thing we have going on in this country with this pipeline of toxic food and the pharmaceutical industry, and the fact that so many Americans are fat, sick, and nearly dead. And the way that this needs to change systemically, big change, and getting rid of factory farming, bringing money into small farms and encouraging people to buy those small farms and bring them back to life. We've lost so many farms in the last, 50 years? So anyway, I'm not including Bobby Kennedy Jr. in this read, because I think that if he does come back onto the stage, it is going to be because someone else is not. And I'll just leave you pondering that question. This is political, and I know we all have our opinions. This is an objective read. This could be talking about Ozzy and Harriet. Honest to God, I am just reading the astrology, friends. I haven't even picked my candidate. I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe you don't either. But if you have a comment, please keep it positive and kind. Be respectful, because in that way, that's how we begin to change this world, with our own behavior and our own choices. So always choose to be kind. Okay? And until next time, please be well.